So it can be quite normal for babies to refuse lumpy foods in preference for perhaps kind of smoother textures or softer foods. And that's quite a normal and quite a natural reaction. If you think about what's happening here, the babies have always been used to very smooth foods in terms of their milk, which was very smooth and easy to swallow down. And if you started with the purees, again, it was a lot easier for babies to take the puree food and to swallow it down without a lot of work going on in their mouth. And then all of a sudden we're introducing them to lumpy textures and perhaps some finger foods, and that requires a lot more work for them in terms of what they have to do with their tongue and their jaw and their lips. And some babies would just prefer to go back to the purees or go back to the smoother textures and not have to deal with all of that extra effort. So when you think about it, it's quite a natural thing to happen. It's not unusual and it's not a problem. What we want to do is just try and gently encourage those lumps and perhaps some finger foods alongside that. So you can start to experiment and play around, and rather than going from very smooth purees to something that's really quite lumpy, like chunks of pasta, make that transition a bit more gradually. So for example, something like mashed potato, but making sure that there are a few small soft lumps in there, or porridge for breakfast with a few more lumps in there, or something like Weetabix without really mashing it down, making sure that there's some texture in there. So it's always soft lumps that you're starting with, and just gradually work on making those foods lumpier. Finger foods are a really useful thing to introduce at this point as well, because it will help with that desensitization of the lumps in their mouth. And really all that means is just making them more familiar with what the lumps feel like in their mouth, so that they know what to do and they feel more confident and comfortable. And that will only happen the more you expose them to those types of textures. So the key really is to kind of keep trying and keep persevering. If we go back to the purees or back to the smoother textures, it just makes it harder a little bit later on. So I would discourage you from going back a stage, but maybe just think about doing it quite gradually. Some babies will enjoy finger foods and enjoy the independence of finger foods. And if you find that that is the case for your baby, then you can go a bit more finger food heavy and let them have fun and enjoy lumps that way. But if your baby prefers to be spoon fed, then make sure that each meal always has some kind of small soft lumps in there, and gradually work on making that texture lumpy.